Jax Thompson's hands trembled on the controls as the klaxons blared through the laughing slow human ship. Incoming. Brace for impact. The voice over the comms was barely audible over the cacophony of alarms and the distant thuds of enemy fire hitting the ship's shields. The cold void of space outside was filled with the flashes of lasers and the silhouettes of the Galactic Empire's imposing fleet. Jax, maintain your course. Captain Elena Hayes commanded, her voice steady and firm. Her calm demeanor was a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding them. Jax took a deep breath, his grip tightening on the controls, and focused on the task at hand. The Galactic Empire's flagship, a massive behemoth bristling with weaponry, loomed ahead. The Empire had launched a surprise attack on the human rebels, their intention clear: total annihilation. But the human fleet, with its seemingly outdated ships, had a trick up its sleeve. The laughing slow human ships, named for their deceptive sluggishness, were equipped with advanced cloaking technology and powerful EMP cannons that could render the Empire's high-tech weaponry useless. Jax's ship shuddered as another blast hit. He glanced at the readouts. Shields holding, but barely. He activated the cloaking device, the ship shimmering out of visibility. Cloak engaged, Captain, he reported. Good. Let's show these Empire dogs what we're made of, Hayes replied, her eyes scanning the tactical display. Her strategic mind was always 3 steps ahead, planning and countering the enemy's moves. As Jax maneuvered the ship through the battlefield, he couldn't help but admire Captain Hayes. She was the reason he had joined the rebellion. Her leadership and unyielding determination inspired loyalty and courage in those who followed her. The comms crackled with the voice of Admiral Thrax, the ruthless leader of the Empire's fleet. Surrender now, rebels, and your deaths will be swift. Resist, and you will be annihilated. His tone was icy, devoid of any emotion or empathy. Jax felt a surge of anger. He had seen what the Empire did to those who resisted. Whole planets razed, populations enslaved. He wouldn't let that happen to his home. Over my dead body, he muttered under his breath. Steady, Jax, Hayes said, having overheard. Focus on the mission. We have to disable their flagship's command structure. It's our only chance. Jax nodded, determination stealing his resolve. The ship slipped through the enemy lines, the cloaking device masking their presence. The sensory array buzzed with activity, the sights and sounds of battle enveloping them. Lasers streaked across the void, explosions lighting up the dark expanse. Target in sight, Jax announced, eyes fixed on the Empire's flagship. He could see the hangar bay, their point of entry. Hayes gave the order, and Jax expertly piloted the ship inside, the cloaking device disengaging as they touched down. Prepare for infiltration, Hayes commanded. The crew sprang into action, checking weapons and gear. Jax felt a mix of fear and excitement. This was it. Their chance to strike a blow against the Empire. As they exited the ship and entered the cold, sterile corridors of the flagship, Jax's senses were heightened. The faint hum of machinery, the distant echo of footsteps, the smell of ozone from the battle outside, everything was sharper, more vivid. Stay sharp, Hayes whispered. We're in enemy territory now. The chapter ends with the team poised on the edge of a critical mission, the tension palpable. They are about to face the full might of the Galactic Empire, but with courage and cunning, they just might succeed. Jax's pulse quickened as the team moved silently through the labyrinthine corridors of the Empire's flagship. The air was thick with tension, every footfall echoing ominously against the metal walls. Stay close, Captain Hayes whispered, her voice a taut string of command and reassurance. They had successfully infiltrated the heart of the enemy's stronghold, but the real challenge was just beginning. Their mission was clear: reach the command center and disable the ship's systems, crippling the Empire's ability to wage war. Each step forward felt like a descent into the lion's den. Hayes led the way, her keen eyes scanning for any signs of danger. Behind her, Jax and the rest of the team followed, their movements synchronized and purposeful. Jax's mind raced, recalling every detail of the plan. They couldn't afford any mistakes. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by the sound of marching boots. Incoming patrol, Hayes signaled, motioning for the team to take cover. They pressed against the cold walls, weapons at the ready. The footsteps grew louder, and Jax's heart pounded in his chest. He held his breath, muscles tensed. A squad of Imperial soldiers marched past, their faces hidden behind imposing helmets. Jax could feel the sweat trickling down his back, the seconds stretching into an eternity. Finally, the patrol turned a corner, and the team exhaled collectively. "That was close," Jax murmured, wiping his brow. Hayes shot him a sharp glance, reminding him of the gravity of their situation. They continued their advance, every corner turned with caution. The sensory overload was palpable, the sterile smell of the ship, the distant hum of machinery, the flickering lights casting eerie shadows. Each moment was a test of their nerves. At last, they reached a junction. Hayes consulted her data pad, a holographic map displaying their route. "The command center is 2 levels up," she stated. "We take the service lift here." She pointed to a nearby access panel. Jax stepped forward, prying open the panel with a small tool. Inside, the lift's controls glowed faintly. He worked quickly, bypassing the security protocols. "We're in," he announced, a note of satisfaction in his voice. The team piled into the cramped lift, the doors sliding shut behind them. As they ascended, Hayes outlined the next steps. "Once we're in the command center, Jax, you and I will handle the main console. The rest of you, secure the entrances and keep an eye out for reinforcements." A nod of agreement passed through the team. They were ready. The lift doors opened to a dimly lit corridor. They emerged cautiously, scanning for threats. The command center lay at the end, its entrance flanked by 2 guards. Hayes signaled to Jax, and they moved swiftly, neutralizing the guards with silent precision. Inside, the command center buzzed with activity. Officers manned their stations, oblivious to the intruders. Hayes and Jax slipped in, moving towards the central console. The room was a hub of technology, screens displaying tactical data and fleet movements. Jax's fingers danced over the controls, his technical skills honed by years of training. Hayes monitored the surroundings, her eyes never resting. "We're almost there," Jax whispered, the system's defenses yielding to his expertise. Just as they accessed the mainframe, alarms blared, red lights flashing ominously. "They know we're here," Hayes said, her voice calm but urgent. "Hold them off while we finish this." The team sprang into action, securing the entrances as Imperial soldiers converged on their position. Blaster fire erupted, the sharp tang of ozone filling the air. Jax worked furiously, his focus unbroken despite the chaos around him. "Got it," he shouted, hitting the final command. The ship's systems flickered, then went dark. The flagship was disabled. But the victory was short-lived. Reinforcements poured in, overwhelming the team. Hayes looked at Jax, determination in her eyes. "We've done what we came to do. Now we get out alive." As they fought their way back to the lift, Jax felt a surge of pride. They had struck a blow against the Empire, but the battle was far from over. The stakes were higher than ever, and their resolve would be tested to the limit. The lift doors slid open, revealing a darkened corridor. Jax Thompson's heart raced as he peered out, the stark metal walls reflecting the red emergency lights. "Clear," he whispered, motioning for the team to follow. They stepped out cautiously, weapons at the ready, senses heightened. Captain Elena Hayes moved to the front, her presence a steadying force. "We need to reach the escape pods," she stated, her voice low but resolute. "We've done our job, now we survive to fight another day." The team advanced, the air thick with tension. The silence was oppressive, every sound amplified. Jax's mind was a whirlwind of calculations and worries. Each step brought them closer to potential discovery. Suddenly, a distant clanging echoed through the corridor. Jax halted, signaling for the others to stop. "What was that?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Could be a maintenance droid," Hayes speculated, but her eyes betrayed her uncertainty. "Stay alert." As they moved forward, the clanging grew louder. Turning a corner, they found the source, a maintenance droid, its sensors focused on a malfunctioning panel. Jax sighed in relief, tension momentarily easing. But their respite was short-lived. The droid's activity had drawn the attention of a patrol. The sound of marching boots reverberated down the hallway. "We've got company," Jax hissed, urgency creeping into his tone. Hayes gestured to a nearby alcove. "Take cover. Prepare to engage if necessary." The team concealed themselves, watching as the patrol approached. The Imperial soldiers, clad in gleaming armor, moved with mechanical precision. Jax's pulse quickened, his grip tightening on his blaster. The patrol halted near the droid. One soldier spoke, his voice distorted by his helmet. "Status report." "Maintenance in progress," the droid replied, its voice monotone. Satisfied, the patrol continued on, their footsteps fading. Jax exhaled, the adrenaline ebbing. "That was close," he murmured, stepping out from their hiding spot. Hayes nodded, her expression grim. "We're not out of this yet. Let's move." They pressed on, navigating the labyrinthine corridors. The ship seemed to hum with malevolent energy, the oppressive atmosphere wearing on their nerves. Every creak and groan of the metal structure set their hearts racing. At last, they reached the escape pod bay. The doors were sealed, a security panel glowing ominously. Jax approached, tools in hand. "I'll get us in," he said, his voice steady despite the stakes. As he worked on the panel, Hayes kept watch. The rest of the team formed a defensive perimeter, eyes scanning for threats. The tension was palpable, every second feeling like an eternity. Jax's hands moved with practiced precision, bypassing the security protocols. The panel beeped, and the doors slid open. "We're in," he announced, a hint of triumph in his voice. But their relief was short-lived. Alarms blared, and the bay was flooded with red light. "Intruders detected," an automated voice declared. "Get to the pods." Hayes commanded, urgency sharpening her tone. The team sprinted towards the nearest pods, blaster fire erupting from the entrance as Imperial soldiers stormed in. Jax dove into a pod, sealing the hatch behind him. The pod's systems roared to life, and he felt a lurch as it launched into space. Through the viewport, he saw the other pods launching, the ship receding into the distance. Blaster fire streaked past, narrowly missing them. Jax's heart pounded, the reality of their narrow escape sinking in. The pods hurtled through space, heading for the safety of the human fleet. Jax glanced at the readouts, confirming their course. "We made it," he breathed, relief flooding over him. But the fight was far from over. The Empire would regroup, and their retaliation would be swift. Jax knew they had only bought themselves time. As he looked out into the vast expanse of space, his resolve hardened. They would keep fighting, no matter the cost. Jax Thompson's escape pod shuddered as it breached the atmosphere of the rebel stronghold, Haven. The battered vessel touched down with a jarring thud, the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. He quickly unbuckled and clambered out, the fresh air a stark contrast to the sterile environment of space. "Welcome back, Jax," Captain Elena Hayes greeted him, her voice warm despite the grim circumstances. Her usually composed demeanor was tinged with urgency. "The Empire's retaliation fleet is already on its way. We don't have much time." Jax nodded, his mind racing. "What's our plan?" he asked, eyes scanning the bustling base. The human rebels were in full preparation mode, loading weapons, fortifying defenses, and coordinating strategies. Hayes motioned for him to follow. We need to hit them hard and fast. We've got a surprise for them. She led him to a secluded hangar where a sleek, heavily armed ship awaited. The Guardian. Our last hope. Jax's eyes widened. The Guardian was a prototype, rumored to possess cutting-edge technology capable of turning the tide. She's ready. Hayes nodded. More than ready. You'll lead the charge. We need to buy enough time for the evacuation of civilians. As they boarded the Guardian, the tension mounted. The crew, seasoned and resolute, greeted them with nods of respect. Jax settled into the pilot's seat, the controls familiar yet daunting. Hayes took her position beside him, her presence a pillar of strength. Launch sequence initiated, Hayes announced, her voice steady. The ship roared to life, engines humming with raw power. The hangar doors opened, revealing the vast expanse of space. Let's show them what we're made of, Jax said, determination etched into his features. He guided the Guardian out, the stars stretching before them. The Empire's fleet loomed ahead, a menacing wall of firepower. Jax's heart pounded, but his focus remained unbroken. All units, engage on my mark, he commanded, his voice calm over the comms. The battle erupted in a symphony of chaos. Lasers blazed, ships weaved through the void, and explosions lit up the darkness. The Guardian's advanced systems gave them an edge, but the Empire's numbers were overwhelming. Target their command ship, Hayes directed, her strategic mind working at lightning speed. Without leadership, they'll crumble. Jax maneuvered the Guardian with precision, dodging enemy fire. He lined up the command ship in his sights, the massive vessel bristling with defenses. Firing EMP, he announced, unleashing a pulse that rippled through the enemy fleet. The command ship's systems flickered and died, plunging it into chaos. Direct hit. Hayes exclaimed, a rare smile breaking through her stern exterior. But the celebration was short-lived. More Imperial ships converged on their position, desperate to avenge their loss. We're surrounded, a crew member reported, panic edging their voice. Jax's mind raced. We need to draw them away from the evacuation zone. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. The Guardian darted through the enemy lines, a beacon of hope amidst the onslaught. The tension reached a fever pitch as they dodged, fired, and weaved through the chaos. Jax's hands moved instinctively, every decision a gamble with their lives. Evacuation is nearly complete, Hayes reported, relief mingling with the strain in her voice. Just a bit longer. An explosion rocked the Guardian, alarms blaring. Hull breach in Sector 3, someone shouted. Jax gritted his teeth, fighting to maintain control. Hold together, girl, he whispered, coaxing the ship through sheer willpower. The enemy fire was relentless, but they had to persevere. Finally, the last of the civilian ships cleared the atmosphere. Evacuation successful, Hayes confirmed, a collective sigh of relief sweeping through the crew. All units, retreat, Jax ordered. We've done our job. The Guardian turned, engines straining as they sped away from the battlefield. The Empire's fleet, disorganized and leaderless, faltered. As they broke through to safety, a cheer erupted within the ship. Hayes placed a hand on Jax's shoulder. We did it, she said, pride and exhaustion mingling in her voice. Jax smiled, a wave of relief washing over him. This is just the beginning. We'll keep fighting until the galaxy is free. As the Guardian sailed through the stars, the crew's spirits lifted. They had faced the Empire's wrath and emerged victorious. The struggle for freedom was far from over, but they had shown the strength and resilience of humanity.